Thank you. Joining me now, more in-depth look at the investigation and the ruling is local civil and criminal attorney Eric Guster. This is a case you've been following since November. What have you learned from the 24-page report that we've all been going through?
The main thing that I learned is that the officer was not in fear of the lives of, for example, Aaron Brown. He was in fear of the life of EJ's friend. That is what he claimed in this particular report. So a police officer does have the right to use deadly force if they fear for someone's life. But the family, I totally understand what their concern is, because this was EJ's friend. So he was not going to do something to his particular friend in this situation. So of course the public clearly has a divide in what we believe in reference to what the report says and what may have actually happened.
So the report does say that there were two shootings in the mall. EJ Bradford's friend,
yes,
who was shot, and there was a 13-year-old girl who was also shot by a person who has admitted to those shootings. That's one shooting. The second one, yes, of course, of EJ himself. And so when you say the officer said he was afraid for the person who was lying on the ground who had been shot, because according to the report, EJ was headed back, and the video showing that he was headed back in that direction.
Yes, everyone was running away from the shooting. EJ was running to the young man who was shot. And that is what the officer, according to his testimony that was put into the report, that is what he said in his statement. So that is one of the conflicting issues that a lot of people in the public, we particularly have with that particular situation.
And so there's also the issue of whether someone heard an officer say, "Drop your weapon," and the officer saying, did he actually say that? According to the report, he didn't make a command, but a witness said they heard it.
Yes, and in these cases, which we said this a long time ago, when these cases develop, there are a lot of things that people say initially that won't pan out to be true. For example, a person who worked in, I think, Charlie's or Claire's stated that they heard the officer say, "Drop your weapon," but that did not happen. There were witnesses who said they saw EJ help people to safety. That did not happen. So when you have a situation like this, there are a lot of things where people say things that simply are lies, and some people say things that they think may have been true because there's so much going on. There are gunshots and people screaming and running. People will say what their perception of things were.
So the question about whether what happened was proper, the procedure, there were calls in the immediate days afterwards that people talk about what are the policies and procedures for Hoover police officers in responding. This went out, we're told, as an active shooter call in the mall. According to the report, within 2 to 3 seconds of hearing the gunshots, they encounter EJ.
Yes, according to the report, the officer was only several feet away, so within 3 to 5 seconds, they encountered EJ and shot him. So there wasn't a long time, which so many people thought there was a long time before the first shots and the second shots. They thought it was like 30 seconds or a minute or so, which that wasn't the case. This was only 5 seconds, which goes to help the defense of the police officer in this particular shooting. However, there's still the factor of whether he should have been shot or not.
Because there were two officers,
yes,
and the video shows the two, but only one fired their weapon. Does that hold any sway one way or the other in this?
It's definitely going to come into play, because the family's attorney is going to say, well, this officer didn't shoot. If there was not an imminent threat, then why did this officer shoot and this one didn't? So that's going to be one of the points of contention when you're looking at a civil case of whether the officer should be liable or Hoover should be liable or not, whether this officer acted properly and this other one did not.
And so people will continue to ask for more evidence. They want the full video. Eric Guster, thank you for joining us and giving us your insight into the report and the video. Of course, CBS 42 will continue to bring you coverage of this breaking news situation and the report. Jack?
Sure.